Montana Territory, late summer of 1879. The sun was burning low over the Ruby Valley when Gentry Oakes spotted the dying man half buried beneath the cottonwoods by the creek. She pulled back on the reins, dust clouding around her boots as her mare skidded to a stop. Her hand went to the Henry rifle slung across her saddle, but the man did not stir. He was sprawled face down in the dry grass, one arm twisted beneath him, the other stretched toward the water like he had been crawling for it. He looked half dead. Maybe more. Gentry slid off the saddle, boots crunching over dry leaves, cautious but fast. The wariness never left her, not since her husband died 3 winters ago, and the town doctor looked her straight in the eye and said there was nothing he could do. Not since she buried him herself, beside the cottonwoods, with a 6-year-old boy on one hip and a 4-year-old girl crying into her skirts. Now her children, Daniel and Daisy, were 9 and 7, and she had not let a stranger near their ranch in over a year. But something about the way this man lay sunburned, bleeding, forgotten pulled at a place deep in her chest she thought had gone quiet. "Sir," she said, stepping closer. "Can you hear me?" A low groan came from him barely there. He shifted, tried to lift his head, then dropped it again. She knelt beside him. His shirt was torn, soaked with blood at the shoulder and ribs. His lips were cracked, his skin hot like a fire gone wrong. There was a revolver tucked into the back of his belt, but it looked untouched. "Son of a," Gentry muttered, then set her jaw. "All right. All right." She pressed her fingers to his neck. His pulse thudded weak, but there. "Help me out here," she murmured, lifting his arm over her shoulder and dragging his weight up inch by inch. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and heavier than he looked. Her back ached with each step, but she gritted her teeth and heaved him over her saddle. The mare shifted under the weight but did not protest. By the time she got him back to the ranch house, the sky had gone orange with dusk. Daniel came running from the barn, his face flushed with sweat and dirt. "Mama, who's that?" he asked. "Help me get him inside," she said, breathless. "He is hurt bad." Together they hauled him into the house. Gentry laid him on the bed in the spare room, a space that had not seen use since her husband's brother passed through 3 years back and sent Daniel for water. She worked quickly, cutting away the blood-crusted shirt, cleaning the wound at his ribs. It looked like a bullet had grazed him, but infection had set in. Whoever he was, he had been out there too long. He stirred again as she pressed a cool cloth to his forehead. His eyes cracked open, deep-set and blue, unfocused. "You are safe," she said softly. "You are at my ranch. Do not try to move yet." His lips moved. No sound came out. She leaned closer. "What is it?" "Name's Quillan," he rasped. "Quillan James." Then he passed out again. The fever held on for 3 days. Gentry barely slept, tending to him through the long nights while Daisy kept watch during the day, reading fairy tales aloud from the old book Gentry's mother once gave her. Daniel brought in wood, water, and fresh-picked apples. They worked like a unit, quiet and steady, like they had always known how to do this. On the 4th morning, Quillan opened his eyes. Really opened them. Gentry was pouring hot water into the basin when she saw him watching her. "You made it," she said, setting the kettle down. He blinked slowly. "You are the one who found me." She nodded. "About a mile east. Looked like you had been shot and wandered off to die." He winced, then gave a short laugh. "That sounds about right. You remember how it happened?" "Ambush," he said. 3 men north of Virginia City. Took my horse. Left me for dead." "Virginia City," she said. "You came far." "Was not planning to. I was headed to Wyoming. Looking for work." She brought the cup of water to his lips. He drank slow, careful. "You are lucky I came by," she said. "Luck," he murmured. "Or something else." Their eyes met. It was only a second, but it lingered. By the end of the week, Quillan could sit up. He was quiet, but not cold, and the children warmed to him fast. Daniel peppered him with questions about the towns he had seen, the cattle drives, the rail lines. Daisy brought him her drawings, mostly horses with wings and enormous eyes. "You are good with them," Gentry said one afternoon, watching from the door as Quillan helped Daniel mend a broken fence post. He looked up, wiping sweat from his brow. "I like honest work. You could have stayed in bed." He shrugged. "Oh, you more than rest." She nodded once, then turned to go. But his voice stopped her. "Gentry." She turned back. "Thank you," he said. "For saving my life." Her throat tightened. "You are welcome." The days passed. Early fall came to the valley, and Quillan stayed. He helped with the harvest, rode out with Daniel to check the perimeter, fixed the squeaky door Gentry had ignored for 2 years. He slept in the barn once he was strong enough, not wanting to intrude. But most nights, they sat outside under the stars after the children had gone to bed, talking in low voices. "You ever think about leaving this place?" he asked one night. She shook her head. "This land is all I have left of my husband. He built that barn with his own hands. His grave is out by the cottonwoods." Quillan was quiet a long time. "I lost someone too," he said finally. "Years ago. My brother. We were driving cattle through Texas when a storm hit. He drowned in a river that rose too fast. I never stopped hearing him call for help." Gentry looked over at him, her heart aching. "I could not save him," Quillan said. "But maybe. Maybe I was meant to be here. With you. With them." Gentry swallowed hard. "You do not owe us anything." "I know," he said, eyes steady. "But I want to stay." She looked at him then, really looked. The man she had pulled from death's edge. The man who had become something steady and strong in her life. "You are not just staying for them," she said. "No," he said, voice thick. "I am staying for you." She stepped closer, breath caught. "Gentry," he said, reaching for her hand. "You saved my life. But being here. With you. It saved something in me too. Something I did not know was still there." She let him take her hand. Her heart pounded, but her voice was steady. "You are not alone anymore," she said. He smiled soft and real. "And neither are you." Wind moved through the cotton stalks with a dry hush, and Gentry watched Quillan from the edge of the porch, her needle paused mid-stitch. He was walking the fence line with Daniel, carrying a coil of wire under one arm, his limp still faint but there. The boy trotted beside him, gesturing at something ahead. Quillan listened with a tilt of his head and a patient nod, as if the boy's thoughts carried weight. Inside, Daisy hummed while she sorted small stones by color into a wooden box. Gentry could hear the click of them, soft and steady, like rain on a tin basin. She returned her eyes to the needle and thread in her lap, working it through the rough wool of Daniel's old coat. The cuffs had frayed again, and she'd let them go too long. She hated letting things go too long. Threads unraveled when you did. The screen door creaked open behind her. "She has got supper nearly ready," Daisy said, stepping out with a small bundle wrapped in muslin. "I brought the stones he liked best." Gentry looked down at the bundle. "You sure he'll want to keep them?" "He said he used to collect ones like these when he was little," Daisy said. "He said green ones reminded him of spring in the Texas hills." Gentry brushed a hand over her daughter's hair. "Then I think he'll be glad to have them." They watched the pair returning through the field, boots kicking up gold-brown dust. Quillan's shirt clung damp to his back, but he carried himself easier now and the lines around his mouth had softened since those first days. Later, when the table was cleared and the children tucked into bed, Gentry stepped outside to find Quillan leaning against the porch post. His gaze was on the horizon where the moon had just cleared the ridge, casting silver across the tops of the cottonwoods. She came to stand beside him, arms folded against the cooling air. Daisy thinks you're a rock collector now, she said. Quillan smiled, slow and tired. She handed me that bundle like it was treasure. She does not give those away easy. Well, he said, I will guard them like they're gold. They stood together in the hush, crickets singing low in the brush. Gentry glanced at him, noting the way his shoulders rested easier now, less like a man waiting to bolt. You ever think of staying? She asked, her voice quiet. He looked at her then, not startled, just thoughtful. I've been thinking about little else, he said. What's keeping you from saying it plain? He hesitated, then turned to face her fully. I've known men who took kindness for invitation. I didn't want to be one of them. You're not, she said simply. He held her gaze. Then yes. I want to stay. She nodded once, the sound of her breath steady in her chest. There's room in the barn through winter. Might be colder than you're used to. I've seen worse, he said. Besides, I've got a good coat now. Daniel insisted I take it. He's always had a soft spot for the stubborn. Quillan's brow furrowed, but there was a hint of warmth in it. I never thought I'd feel needed again. You are, she said. He stepped closer, not touching, but near enough she could feel the heat of him. I don't know much about settling. All my life's been moving. It's not about standing still, she said. It's about having a reason to stay. His voice was low when he said, and if that reason's you. She didn't look away. Then it's the right one. He reached for her hand this time, and she let him take it. No rush, no grand gesture, just the quiet weight of two people who had carried too much alone. Gentry, he said, her name steady in his mouth, like it belonged there. She leaned her shoulder into his, just enough to feel the shape of him beside her. We'll take it slow. I'm not going anywhere, he said. And for the first time in years, she let herself believe that someone meant it. The first frost came quiet, dusting the porch railings and stiffening the last of the squash vines before sunrise. Quillan rose early, his breath clouding in the barn's cold air, and pulled on the coat Daniel had given him. The sleeves were a little short, but the gesture still warmed him better than the wool. He crossed the yard toward the main house, boots crunching on the frozen dirt. The kitchen window glowed faintly, smoke rising from the chimney. Inside, Gentry was kneading dough, sleeves rolled to her elbows, hair tied back in a strip of muslin. She didn't look up when he stepped in, but her voice met him before the door fully closed. You'll want to take the north pasture fence today. Wind brought down a section near the corner post. He set the tools by the stove to warm. Already saw it. I'll bring the spare rails. She dusted flour from her fingers, then glanced over. Daniel's gone to help the Beechers load their hogs. Daisy's with me today. All right. He paused, thumb grazing the edge of the table. You trust them? Beechers? They don't talk much, but they work honest. I meant Daniel. Heading off without you. Gentry wiped her hands on a cloth, then folded it neatly. He's 9, Quillan. And he's careful. I taught him how to watch men's hands more than their words. He nodded slowly. You taught him well. She didn't answer, just reached for the pot of coffee and poured 2 cups. He waited until she slid one toward him. Never spent a full winter in Montana, he said. You'll learn fast. Or you'll freeze. He smiled behind the steam. I've heard stories of oxen dying on their feet, frozen solid. They're not stories. They drank in silence for a long stretch, the fire cracking behind them. Then, without lifting her eyes from her cup, she said, You ever think about starting again? Not just staying. I mean building something that's yours. He considered, then set the cup down. I've thought about it more these past weeks than I have in years. You'd need land. Stock. A home. I'd need a partner, he added. Her eyes lifted. I don't mean someone to raise walls with, he said. I mean someone to build a life beside. She didn't speak, but her hands stilled. I never asked for much, he went on. Maybe a mule, a dog, someone to talk to when the snow gets deep. But now I see this place your way of tending to it, to the children, and I think I could want more. If it was with you. She leaned back against the counter, arms folded. You think you know what you're asking? I don't, he said. Not fully. But I know I'd stay through any winter if it meant waking up to your voice. That silence came again. Not empty, but full with all the things neither of them had dared name before. After a while, she said, my first marriage wasn't chosen. My father arranged it. Levi was kind, but we didn't start with love. We grew into it. I buried him not long after we did. I'm not Levi, Quillan said. I know that. I wouldn't take anything from you. Not your name, your land, or the way you run this house. You'd have to earn every bit of trust, she said. I'd work at it every day. She looked at him then, really looked. The lines around his eyes, the worn edge of his collar, the steadiness in his hands. A man who'd nearly died under a cottonwood and now stood in her kitchen asking for a future. You could start, she said, by helping Daisy sweep the chimney flue before nightfall. He grinned. That I can do. And if you want to talk about land and stock, she added, we've got a 1/4 acre by the creek that's gone to seed. You put in the work, I'll see about a deed. He straightened, something like breath catching in his chest. You're offering me a piece of this? I'm offering you a piece of something new. If you're ready to build it. I am, he said. She nodded once, then turned back to the dough. Then we'll need more winter feed. And another saddle blanket. I'll ride into Sheridan tomorrow, see what they've got left. And take Daniel. He's been wanting to see the smith's forge. Quillan reached for his gloves. I'll make a man out of him yet. He's already halfway there, she said, smiling just barely. He lingered a second longer, then stepped back outside, breath rising into the cold morning air. Behind him, the door swung shut with a soft latch. Ahead, the fence waited, and beyond that, a future that felt less like a dream and more like something he could put his hands on. Something he could build. With her. The snow came early, not heavy at first, but enough to soften the sound of hooves on the road and dampen the edges of morning light. Quillan arrived back from Sheridan with Daniel just as the last of the daylight slipped behind the buttes. Gentry had kept the lanterns low, saving oil, but lit them as she heard boots on the step. You're late, she said, opening the door with her shawl clutched close. I was starting to wonder if the drifts caught you. Daniel pulled off his gloves, breathless and red-cheeked. We stopped at the tannery. Quillan showed me how to tell if a hide's cured right. I told him it's in the way it smells, Quillan said, lifting the sack over his shoulder. He didn't believe me until he got too close. The boy grinned wide, then hurried to the back to hang his coat. Gentry stepped aside as Quillan passed. Did you get the blanket? He set the bundle on the table. 2. The smith's wife said they were the last good ones before spring. I traded the last of the jerky and a bit of coin for them. She unwrapped the cloth slowly, fingers brushing the thick wool. They'll hold. He leaned against the table, brushing snow from his collar. Saw a man from Fort Benton headed south. Said there's talk of another line being laid through Miles City come summer. She folded the blanket once, then again. That'll bring more freight. Maybe more people. More need for horses, too, he said. If I had a team ready by spring, I could haul feed or timber down to the station. You think you'd want to do that? I'd want to earn enough to build something here. I figure that's the way. Gentry looked up at him, the lamplight catching the curve of her cheek. You've already started. He reached across the table, palm up, not pressing. She looked at his hand for a beat before setting hers in it. His thumb traced the ridge at the base of each knuckle, soft and slow. "I didn't know what peace looked like," he said. "Not until I saw it on your face the morning after the first frost." "You think this is peace?" she asked. "I think it's the closest I've ever come." She turned her hand in his, lacing their fingers. "I keep waiting for it to feel like too much. Like it'll slip away." "It won't," he said. "Not unless you ask it to." She held his gaze, quiet filling the space around them like snow on the roof. A log shifted in the stove behind them. "I want you here," she said. "But not as a guest. Not in the barn. I want you in this house. At this table. Beside me." Quillan didn't speak right away. He didn't have to. He stepped around the table instead, hands still linked with hers, and pulled her in close. His breath met her collarbone, warm against the chill that hadn't quite left the room. "I'll build the stall for the mule at first light," he said. "And I'll bring down the cot from the loft." She rested her head against his chest. "You'll take the room across from mine." Until, he echoed, voice low. Neither needed to finish it. Outside, the wind pressed against the glass. Inside, she turned down the lamp, and they stood in the dark together, wrapped in something steadier than warmth. Not promise. Not hope. Just the quiet understanding of two people who had found, at last, a place to stay. By December, the snow no longer came in flurries but settled heavy and deep, blanketing the hills until the trees bowed under its weight. Smoke from the chimney curled steady into the pale sky, and the world outside hushed to a kind of stillness that made every sound inside the house feel louder. Bread slicing, boots brushing clean by the door, Daisy's quiet humming while she stitched the edge of a quilt Gentry had started long before Quillan arrived. The spare room across the hall had become his without much ceremony. His saddlebag sat by the chest, his coat hung on the peg beside Daniel's lighter one, and his boots rested by the stove each night to dry. He never asked for more than that, and Gentry never pressed, but there was no mistaking the shape of their days now woven close, not separate. One morning, while Gentry kneaded the last of the winter flour into a dense loaf, she noticed Daniel watching Quillan from the doorway. "He's packing the mule," the boy said, eyes narrowed. "Said something about the ridge trail." Gentry dried her hands, heart-catching. "He didn't say where he was headed?" Daniel shook his head. She stepped out into the cold without her shawl. Quillan stood by the lean-to, brushing frost from the mule's back with short, brisk strokes. A bundle was tied to the saddle, but not one large enough for leaving. "You're not going far," she said, voice firmer than she meant. He turned, surprised. "Just to the ridge. The trapper near the far creek said he's got a set of iron hinges he can spare. I want to start on the smokehouse door before the thaw." She stepped closer, the wind tugging at her sleeves. "You could have sent for them. There's no need to go yourself." "I needed to see the land from up high," he said. "Make sure the cattle paths haven't iced over. I thought I'd be back before mid-morning." Gentry let out a slow breath. I didn't expect you to go without saying." "I was trying to be useful," he said. "You've been more than useful." They stood quiet a moment. Then he reached into the saddlebag and pulled free a small, folded piece of paper. "I meant to leave this on the table," he said. "I asked the trapper to order something from Billings on his next visit." She opened it with care. Inside was a drawing, rough but clear, a simple structure with squared beams, a slanted roof, and a porch that faced east. A house. "Did you draw this?" "Not well," he said. "But it's what I'd build. On the far acre, where the ground's driest." She ran her fingers over the lines, her chest tightening. "I wasn't sure if I should show you yet." "You should've," she whispered. "I want us to build it," he said. "Together. Not just for shelter. For a life." Her eyes met his, and there was no hesitation left in them. "Yes," she said. Let's build it. They didn't speak again until he returned hours later, wind-chapped and flushed, the hinges in his pack and a fresh cut on his thumb where the mule had jerked the bridle. Gentry cleaned it with warm water and cloth, hands steady while Daisy watched from her stool beside the fire. That night, they all sat close around the stove, the heat rising slow and steady. Daniel carved a length of pine into the shape of a bird. Daisy stitched a sun into the center of her quilt block. Gentry leaned back against Quillan's knee, her hair brushing his hand. He caught a strand between his fingers and held it there, quiet. "I never thought I'd live somewhere that felt like mine," he said softly. "But this place. This family. It's home." She tipped her head back to look at him. "You made it so." Winter passed like that, slow days, hard work, and the quiet comfort of knowing each other fully. When the snow melted, they cleared the acre beside the creek. The land was dry, just like he'd said. They laid a foundation with stone Daniel helped gather, then raised the frame beam by beam, Gentry's hands wrapped in cloth, Quillan's shirt soaked through by noon most days. They built it together. Every wall, every board. When the roof was done and the windows set, she stood on the porch beside him and took his hand. "We'll live here," she said. "Start fresh. But we'll keep the old house, too. For the children. For the memory," she said. "But this one's for what comes next." He kissed her then, not rushed, not uncertain. Just the two of them, steady in the spring wind, surrounded by the land that had carried them through. They were married in early May, under the cottonwoods. No preacher, no paper. Just the children, the hills, and the vows they spoke with hands clasped over the old stone where Levi lay buried. Gentry set wildflowers thereafter, quiet and respectful. "I'll always be grateful he brought you here," Quillan said. She nodded. "And I'll always be grateful you stayed." They moved into the new house the following week. Daniel carved the lintel with his initials and daisies, and Gentry planted herbs outside the kitchen window. The smokehouse was finished by midsummer, and Quillan's team of 2 bay horses hauled lumber from the ridge for neighbors who needed it, always returning by dusk. One evening, he leaned against the porch post, watching the children walk back from the stream with their hands full of wild mint. "I never thought I'd have this," he said. "You earned it," she said, wrapping her arms around his waist. "I think we both did," he said. They watched the sun settle into the valley, the light long and golden across the grass. Behind them, the house stood firm and warm, filled with the sounds of a life fully lived, not one they'd stumbled into, but one they'd chosen, day by day, hand in hand.